So today we're asking a huge question. With real estate prices so high, what's actually wrong with renting? I mean, shouldn't we just toss that out from the American dream and just say, sorry, it's just too expensive? According to AI, the average price of a home in America a decade from now, $1 million. That's up from today's $415,000 price. So today we're gonna explore a video of what would happen if you just spent the next decade renting versus owning and how much money you're gonna miss out on. Until interest rates drop to 5.25%, it's actually going to be cheaper to rent than it is to buy. And that is certainly true according to Bankrate in the 50 biggest metro areas in America. Many renters, especially Gen Z, are giving up on the thought of ever buying a place of their own. They look at the previous generation, they're like, we were raised in a house, grandparents had a house, but it's not really affordable for us. So you know what? Maybe we shouldn't prioritize this part of the dream. But please listen as carefully as you possibly can. The biggest financial mistake of your entire life would be giving up on real estate and just renting. And let's take a look at some of the numbers why. We all know that when you rent, you're just throwing money away, right? Like, yes, I get the benefit of renting the place and I get to call it home and I have a roof over my head and it's warm and there's electricity, but you're not buying it. So you're not building any home ownership. And if you were to buy it, there's money you're going to make. Let's take a look in the course of a decade at how much money you make literally just by owning a home versus renting a home. And since we don't know what's going to happen in the next decade, let's look back on the last decade. 10 years ago, if you had bought a brand new home in this country, you would pay $275,000 for that home. Now that's down $140,000 from today's $415,000 cost of real estate. And in today's video, I want to focus on 4 different major benefits that real estate gives you where it actually pays to own real estate. And the first one is, let's just take a look at the obvious. Real estate goes up with time. Now AI may be predicting in the next decade that the $415,000 house is going to be $1 million house, but let's take a look at history from just the last decade. That $275,000 house that you decided to buy 10 years ago today is worth $415,000. So just in owning versus renting alone, your net worth has gone up $140,000. What I mean by that is you paid $275,000 for that home and 10 years later, it's now worth $415,000. So you have on your statement of net worth an asset worth $140,000 pretty much for doing nothing except for choosing to own versus rent when they were 6s. Like, I don't know, I mean, owning might be a little bit more expensive, or I don't know, renting might be a little more expensive. There's a $140,000 difference over the course of that decade. Let's talk about the second benefit. When you live in a house and you make your mortgage payment, you actually pay that mortgage down, which means eventually the house is going to get paid off. How much of that house over the last decade would you have paid off? Well, according to amortization schedules, roughly 30%, which means 10 years ago, if you were renting, you were throwing your rent money away, which a landlord was collecting and using you to pay off their home. But remember, you made the choice 10 years ago to actually buy the house, and you're the one living in it, and every month you make your payment, most of that goes to interest, but some of that goes to what's called principal reduction, which means paying down the house itself. And over the course of 10 years, at 30% on a $275,000 house, you would have paid off approximately $82,000, which means that house is no longer worth $275,000. Now you only owe $193,000 on that house. Now remember, over a decade, the house went up $140,000, but you also paid it down $82,000, which means that you now have a total financial benefit of $222,000. That's almost $250,000. Now we're going to go to the third benefit. You get write-offs when you own real estate. Now for this example, I want to assume that you're in a 20% tax bracket. And since you're writing off approximately $1,000 a month on that $275,000 house, that's $12,000 a year. That's $12,000 a year that comes off of your income, which basically means at a 20% tax bracket, you're going to save approximately $2,400 a year. And you've been doing that for 10 years. So assuming everything stays the same, that's a total of $24,000 extra dollars that you get in tax savings because you're taking advantage of the IRS's #1 tax saver, owning real estate. Well, between the appreciation of $140,000 and paying it down $82,000 and $24,000 of tax benefits, now you're sitting at a total benefit of $246,000 over the course of a decade. That's right around $250,000. But I told you today we were going to go for a fourth benefit. We're going to have some fun. We're going to say that you also decided during that 10 years to rent out a private room. It was a sacrifice. It gave you less living space, but it paid you $600 a month. $600 a month for 10 years is $72,000. That is a side hustle of $72,000 that comes in over the course of a decade, except you don't have to work for it. Literally, it's just at the price of a little bit of inconvenience. By the way, you may have had to have worked an extra 20 or 30 hours a week to bring in that $600, so that $600 is really passive. Now, if I take that $72,000 and I add it to my $246,000, now I'm sitting at a total benefit of $318,000 by owning a home instead of renting a home. Listen, I get it. Maybe that home came with some extra expenses of home ownership. Maybe it was the money pit. Maybe you chose to upgrade some things. But I promise you this, a decade later, you're going to be so much further ahead by multiple six figures. In this case, $318,000 as opposed to just renting. Now, if you can capture that vision, imagine for a moment that you had 10 homes. Well, now that's over $3 million of benefit. And imagine you had 20 homes. That's $6 million of benefit. This is why I was able to retire at the age of 26, just fresh out of college, because I had 25 homes that were giving me all of these benefits. You see, here's the problem with renting. Younger generations are less likely to already own a home that they can sell and put proceeds towards another purchase. And they're often too early in their careers to be making big bucks. Given those circumstances, of course, long-term renting seems like the preferable option, and mainstream media is going to try to convince you that you want to just rent instead of own. But you're going to create a bigger chasm between the haves and the have-nots, the wealthy and the poor, if you make the choice to just be a part of the renter nation. See, here's the problem. People aren't seeing a home purchase as an investment. They're just thinking, I need a place to live and it's cheaper to rent than actually have a house. But your house is in fact an investment. And if you'll make this one choice, your stars will financially look different than everyone else's. Every time you are ready to move on from that house, don't sell it. Rent it, keep it, and get another one. And then 5 years later, company asks you to move or you're ready for a nicer home, don't sell the second house either. Rent it. And if you give it a little bit of time, you're going to become an accidental millionaire. Except you might now be doing it on purpose because you're looking at a home as an investment property, not just a place for you to rest your head on a pillow. Listen, to be entirely fair, there are advantages of renting. You've got flexibility on relocation. It's going to be cheaper. You've got room to save some money. You might be in tighter communities with complexes and townhomes. There could be less risk. There are also some disadvantages. There's a lack of equity. There's a lack of principal reduction. There's a lack of that home going up with time. There's the lack of flexibility to rent out a room and make some extra money. You might have tight restrictions or requirements. You'll lose a lot more money in the long run if you choose to be a part of the renter nation. So where do you even go from here? How would you like to get this multimillionaire's perspective on what you might do financially to produce your best financial results and live your best life? Let's put it plainly. If you want to be financially free, I believe real estate is something you should have in your back pocket. But if you don't know how, or if you want to know more importantly what I would do, I want you to click the link below and I want you to request a free game plan. It literally costs you nothing. I'm going to give you my perspective. I've trained a team of people that do nothing but give Kris Krohn game plans saying, well, you might have money, you might have no money. You might have great credit, you might have bad credit. Regardless of your situation, if you're watching this video thinking, I wonder what a multimillionaire would do in my shoes, I will give you that perspective for free. Click the link below, drop your contact information, let me and my team reach out to you and give you a game plan to show you how to become not an accidental millionaire, but an intentional multimillionaire. Oh, Kris, easy for you to say. You got in real estate like 20 years ago. All right, if I had to do it all over again with today's economy, do you want to know exactly how I would do it? Click right here, watch this video. Let me show you how I get it done over and over again, producing the same multi-million-dollar result just like you can.